Hi. So do you remember that sound? Maybe from unwillingly bumping into your guitar amp on stage, or maybe you even use it as a creative effect. In any case, Pulsar Audio just released a brand new spring reverb plugin called Primavera. So let's check it out, and yes, let's go. Now, I already bought a couple of Pulsar Audio's plugins. I remember starting with their 1178, then moved on to the 8200 EQ, their massive passive, and their very mute compressor. And I also have their small EQ, the W495. I think it was a freebie at the time, not sure it still is, but go check out their website. And now they released a spring reverb in plugin format called Primavera. Now all of their plugins have a bit of that feel of being imperfect, just as analog equipment, really into the small details, and with a bit of that musical 3D vibe. So when they contacted me to check out this plugin before the official release, I was very interested. Now full disclosure, they did provide me with a license to check out this plugin before release, but they have not seen this video before I published it. And obviously, if you hear anybody talk or like or recommend the plugin to you, go try it out for yourself first to see if it fits your needs. They have a 14-day trial. Now, as for spring reverb, it was first introduced into the market by Hammond on their organs, with a patent registered in 1939, and then further popularized by its use in guitar amplifiers from about 1963 onwards. And this effect has since become a staple for classic vintage guitar sound, especially for surf music, but it also has been used on many different instruments by dub producers ever since. Now the effect is generated by having a couple of mechanical springs, which you can see on the plugin, and the strings are excited by a transducer on one side, feeding in the sound that you want to affect, and the sound is picked up on the other side after it has been propagated through the springs. Now Pulsar developed this plugin by listening to a lot of different spring reverb units, and in the end they selected the 6 ones which sounded best to them, but also which complemented each other most. So you get 6 different models of spring reverb, going from lo-fi to hi-fi, and these were not somehow sampled with convolution. Instead, they developed a specific algorithm for each model, which gave them the flexibility that was needed to alter all those parameters that we see on the plugin. So let's check it out. So this is the plugin, like you already saw during the intro. And let's first check it out on guitar. And by the way, all tracks that you're going to hear in this video today are from a song called 500 Miles by my band Wash, and I'll provide links in the description if you want to check it out. And the various spring reverb models are available here with these buttons at the bottom, going from very lo-fi to the most hi-fi spring reverb that they provide. Let's listen. So for this model, they took their inspiration from the guitar amps that popularized spring reverbs, widely used in Fender and other classical instrument amplifiers. These reverbs give you the lo-fi sound that you'd expect from vintage gear, with tons of character and color. And I'm reading this from their own manual, by the way. Now the next model, HR12, is a very lo-fi type of reverb built in Japan in the late 60s. According to Pulsar, it's perfect for those who seek a vintage color and the characteristic boing sound of springs. Simple, dirty and effective. This tank is very little low end, which means that the initial attack of the springs is clearly heard, giving it that special lo-fi flavor. Let's have a listen. Yeah, it definitely has less low end. The next one, SR202, is built on a legendary hi-fi consumer reverb, and this tank sounds dark with prominent beats in the reverb tail. It's the least dense reverb of their selections, with a vibey flutter color, perfect for adding realism to the source. Let's check it out. Yeah, very vibey indeed. The next model is called Tubby, and Tubby is when you're looking for the color of old school dub music. This tank gives you a very round and watery sound with big beats, great for adding subtle variations to your tracks by sending some sources into a bus with reverb on it. A nostalgic effect that works really well on brass, skank, keys or guitars. Well, we have a guitar here, let's listen to how it sounds. Yes, again, a very vibey spring reverb sound. RE201 is based on the classic Echo RE201 from Roland. And according to Pulsar, this tank is maybe the most versatile compared to the other choices. With dense and diffuse reverberation tails, it can adapt to any source in any genre. It's well suited on a lead vocal if you're looking for some added excitement and color. Well, in that case, let's actually try it out on the vocal.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
And the last reverb model is called GBS, which is short for Great British Spring. And this one produces a very dense and open sound. It's the cleanest reverb in the plugin selection, and it's ideal for vocals and other elements that need to shine above the mix. Let's listen to that one.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Yeah, it definitely sounds different, seems to contain more high-end than some of the other ones. Now, before we take a further look, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. It really helps to spread it to more people. You can also subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell icon if you want to get notified when I publish another video. And for even more support, you can use the super thanks button below the video, which is kind of a virtual tip jar, or buy anything through the affiliate links in the description to these stores. I will then get a small kickback of whatever you buy at those stores without any additional cost to you, which is always very much appreciated. But let's get back to the Primavera plugin. So let's check out some of the other controls. On the left side, we have the button to enable or disable the plugin. And we have a drive knob that can add a little bit of saturation from the input preamplifier. And you can set it to either a tube saturation or more a transistor type of saturation. So let's have a listen on the vocal.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down. Hope is rising, the world is trying to keep those stars.
Yeah, nice. It gives it a little bit of extra excitement, analog vibe and dirt. Now, since spring reverb can quickly become a bit too much, especially in the low end, I like the fact that they added a high pass and a low pass filter there. Let's tune that a little bit on this vocal.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Makes it immediately cleaner. We have the typical pre-delay that you can use to add a little bit of delay between the dry sound and the start of the reverb.
Storm is rising, the wind is...
The tension control alters the tension of the simulated strings to change the reverb's character. Increasing character stiffens the strings a bit, adding a little bit more high end usually. And lower tension softens the feel a bit so that the bass frequencies get a bit more pronounced. Let's have a listen. And to make sure that we hear everything, let's get rid of the high pass and low pass.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Yeah, the whole feel of the reverb, to me, it gets more loose when the tension is low and more tight when the tension is high. Now, decay is, of course, the length of the reverb.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying.
Yeah, it can get quite long. Excitation is a bit of a special thing as it's not typically found on a hardware spring reverb box, but it kind of simulates bumping into the guitar amplifier like I demoed at the beginning, where you really hear the spring as a kind of special effect. But when you use the excitation, it actually reacts more or less to the attacks in the sound that you're putting the reverb on. Let's have a listen. Yeah, it's a bit too much now, but you can really hear those spring ploinks when you're hitting a string on the guitar. Now the width determines the stereo width of the signal. The only thing is that when I have the twang model selected, it's always in mono. So I should select another model which provides stereo, and then you can listen to the difference. hear a little bit of an artifact while you turn the knob, but you can clearly hear that the stereo image gets more spread out when you set it to full width. Now there's also a ducker in this plugin, and that's best demonstrated on the vocal again. So now ducking is off, which means that the reverb can really step on the dry vocal.
Storm is rising.
Whereas as you use the ducking, the reverb will come up when the vocal is quiet. Let's try that.
Storm is rising. The wind is crying.
Set to extreme.
Stars are falling down.
So then you hear almost no reverb when there's a vocal, and as soon as it stops, the reverb really comes up. Now mix determines whether you mainly hear the unaffected sound or only the reverb sound. Presence creates a slight emphasis on the upper mids of your reverb signal, and you can use that to enhance the reverb's presence in the mix. Let's listen to the difference in that.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Yeah, it's really much more noticeable when the presence is up. And by the way, there's also the possibility to use an external sidechain. So then you need to feed in the sidechain input via Cubase's sidechain routing. And then you can also duck the reverb based on not the track itself, but on what's playing on that other track. Now, what else do we have? We have a lot of presets. Let's try some presets on the vocal here, for example. Airy springs.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying.
A lot of air. Ducked vocal hole.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying.
Yeah, it definitely sets the vocal back a lot. You can clearly hear that. And maybe a special effect. Megaphone next door. What does that sound like?
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Yeah, it does have that idea of a megaphone, making use of the drive function in the plugin to get that extra distorted sound. Now, when you're auditioning presets, it's also possible to lock a certain parameter. For example, if you always want to lock the decay to 0, you can control click on the parameter or right click on the parameter, and then you can say lock parameter. This little lock appears here then, and whatever preset I'm going to, you can see that the decay stays at the locked value. Unlock it again. Now, when you normally pick up the button with your mouse, it moves pretty slowly. If you want to do more fine-tuning, you can hold the control button at the same time, and then it moves in much more finer increments, and you have better control for those small adjustments. Now, the plugin is fully resizable here. So you can use it on big 4K screens or on more regular sized screens. There's an additional menu here in which you can set the oversampling during real time while you're auditioning, but it can also set other oversampling, which is then used when you're exporting your mix, maybe at higher quality. But Pulsar mentions in the manual that their algorithm, even without oversampling, is very high quality already. And if you really want to use oversampling, maybe just do it on sounds which have some dirt or distortion on them where it pays off. They do warn that their oversampling is also of a bit of a higher quality than some other plugins may be. So it may also be a little bit more CPU intensive because of that. Okay, other options in the menu are that you can turn off help balloons, which show up when you hover over a control. Always nice. Also for the description of the various algorithms. You can go to online support, open the user manual, go to their social media and check out which version of the plugin you're running and some additional details. So what do you think? Do you like a plugin like this? Or do you already have a very similar plugin in your arsenal? Let me know in the comments. I have to say that I'm really a reverb junkie. I have a lot of reverb plugins, probably way more than I ever need. But I also have to say that I do not actually have a spring reverb plugin yet. So this one actually nicely complements the plugins that I do already have. I'm not sure why I did not have a spring reverb plugin yet. Maybe it's just that it reminds me of the bad reverbs that I used to have in my guitar amps in the early days. Whereas now I'm more of a high fidelity reverb kind of guy. But I have to say it's a really nice effect for those vintage purposes. And when you want to go for that really old school sound, maybe even as just a special effect on specific sources. Yeah, so for me it's a nice addition because it's so very different from my other reverbs. But let me know how you feel in the comments. Now, if you like reverb as much as I do, then this video may be interesting to you as well, as I explain how to use 2 different reverbs, blend and size, to get a nice combination when you're using reverb in a mix. So check it out, enjoy, and see you soon.